Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2020-21 season. My name is Dan and today I'm wearing a hat because in my last video someone very accurately pointed out that every other video I wear a hat and every other video I don't wear a hat. So today I thought I'd mug you all off and yeah, I'm not so predictable after all, am I? But we're not here to talk about hats, we're here to talk about FPL and this really kind of interesting video idea I came up with a couple of days ago called Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid. I'm going to try and explain to you the concept of this video in the way that I come up with it in my head. So let's bring up a screen and we'll do some animated stuff, I suppose. So I thought of it sort of in thinking of the players that you're interested in and you're not interested in, split into four sort of quarters, if you like. So buy players you don't have but you should consider bringing in. Sell players that you probably do have but you should consider removing. Keep the players that you probably have and you should of course keep. Avoid the players that you probably don't have but should avoid. So it's sort of split into whether it's a good player or a bad player and whether you're likely to have them or likely to not have them. And the idea here is because we're going to try and get ahead of the transfer bandwagons, if you like, and try and make sure we don't jump on bad transfer bandwagons as well. I like to give sort of advice about how to get ahead of transfers and get ahead of the game and start collecting points from players before they start scoring or at the beginning of their scoring streaks, rather than, you know, anyone can look at a player's last 5 game weeks and think, oh, they scored a good amount of points for the past 5 game weeks, I'll bring them in now. But realistically that doesn't help because everyone else has already got that player and already collected all of those points. So we need to get ahead of the game here. So that's what I'm going to be trying to help you with today. So if you do like this video, please do give it a big old thumbs up, and I'll think about doing this every single week if you guys like it. So do give it a like if you do like what you see or you're interested in this concept. And of course, if you're new around here, please do consider subscribing if you want the usual amazing fantasy tips and help and advice, and sort of join my fantasy journey as well. So yeah, please do consider subscribing, liking, and all of that amazing stuff like that. But yeah, let's crack on. Let's have a look at my first buy. So we're going to go buy, sell, keep, and then avoid. So we'll start off with buy. So here's my first pick for buy. We're going to do 2 of each in each category. So my first buy is James Rodriguez. Now, he was the key man in an impressive Everton side, and his 3 points don't really tell the full story of his performance. And so this is exactly what I mean about getting ahead of the curve, getting ahead of the game, because anyone can, if James Rodriguez scored like 10 points last week, everyone would be jumping on him. But because he only scored 3 points, we can look at some of the underlying stats and say, actually, let's get on James now before he starts scoring. So if it wasn't for if it wasn't for wanting to bring in City and Manchester United players, James would be my main target this game week. He really impressed me the most out of all players in game week 1. Now let me list a few stats from his debut against Spurs. So 11 successful final third passes, 5 chances created, 1 big chance created, 3 shots, 2 of which were inside of the box, an expected goal involvement of 0.64, and he seemed to be on set pieces too. Now, these stats are pretty good, right? But you've got to remember that all of these stats were in an away game against a rigid, very defensive, very negative Spurs side. So imagine what he can do in his next 3 fixtures, where he's up against West Brom at home, Crystal Palace away, and Brighton at home. You know, I think he'll go completely under the radar in transfers this game week just because he didn't score the big FPL points. He blanked. So bringing in James Rodriguez is a great opportunity for you to get ahead of the game, ahead of the trend, and most importantly, start picking up those FPL points before your mates in your mini league even realise what a great option James Rodriguez already is. So yeah, honestly, if you're thinking of going for a Greenwood or a Foden or someone else around the 7 million price point, I would just go for James Rodriguez. I really, really would. It just seems a very, very sensible transfer and a great opportunity to get ahead of the game. I can't think of a better opportunity to get ahead of the game. So next up, I've got Bruno Fernandez. Now, he's the most transferred in player for a very good reason. I'm sure we would all have loved to have Bruno in our Game Week 1 teams, but for many of us, that wasn't to be, so now it's time to transfer him in. Bringing in Bruno was how I spent my transfer this week, and this is the reasons why. So last season, Bruno scored an average of 8.4 points per game across 14 games. Now, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying this is what will happen, but if Bruno were to score that amount of points on average across 38 games, he would end up the season with 318 points. Now, for comparison, De Bruyne, last year's top scorer, got 251 points compared to this potential 318. So you know, De Bruyne, 1 million expensive, that more expensive. Last season was a standout season in FPL for De Bruyne. It sort of weights me in the favour of Bruno Fernandez as a priority. Anyway, I'm not saying I'm never going to have KDB in my team. I'm saying that right now the priority for me is Bruno. I think it will be close over the season, realistically, of the kind of points that they'll get. But looking at the fixtures, Manchester United's look a lot better than City's. United don't have a single red fixture up until game week 12, and there are some great games to captain Bruno in their run-in, starting with Brighton in game week 3. That, plus the amount of penalties given at the moment, you know, game week 1 was the game week of penalties, wasn't it, really? And Bruno, obviously, he's on penalties for United, so another opportunity to get some more points there. So I just feel like he's the perfect premium player to bring in for this run of fixtures. No discredit to the other United or City players, they will probably do well as well, but Bruno is my personal pick and the one I'm most comfortable recommending. So that's what I'm doing. So let's move on to the sells now. And my first sell is Reuben Vinagra. I want to say that, you know, this early in the season, often just one game into the season, I guess I need a really good reason to advise you to sell a player. And I think Vinagra is a good example of a player with a very good reason to sell him. You shouldn't make too cavalier, judgmental decisions based on one game week. It's not enough data. But, you know, many of us thought that Vinagra would be a great cheap way into the Wolves defence, but I don't think that is to be after all. So with the signing of Fernando Marçal, Vinagra is potentially going to be leaving the club as well. This means it's just not really an option anymore. So I decided in the final week leading up to Game Week 1 that I didn't really want to take the risk of Vinagra, but for those of you who did, it's time to swap him out. The great advantage of this is that you're not short on options around the same price. So if you do want to make a transfer, there's loads and loads of different options you can go for instead of Vinagra. So it's a really good way to escape the trap of Vinagra that you've unfortunately been ensnared by. So yeah, particularly if you're feared with being left with only 10 other players to play and you can't pull together a full team, make the transfer and go for someone like Mitchell at 4 million, James Justin at 4.5. Jamal Lewis at 4.5, Lamptey 4.5, Charlie Taylor is 4.5, Ayling is 4.5. If you want to push the budget up a little bit, you can go for Sice at 5 million. So yeah, don't worry, you're not trapped. There's plenty of options, plenty of really good options as well you can move to. So yeah, do that. So Adama Traore is my other guy. I'm not necessarily advocating for the transfer out of Adama Traore as a sell. If you have injuries that are priority transfers, or you have another player in mind that you think can really improve your team, then maybe you can afford to keep Traore in your team for a little bit longer. I don't really see the problem with that. But I'm not a big fan of paying 6.5 million and taking up one of your precious midfielder slots for what is essentially a right wing back. I know Wolves' fixtures look fantastic after the City game, but I just don't think Adama is going to be the guy to capitalise on them. Jimenez has to be target number 1, I think. And if you want a midfielder, I'd be looking at Daniel Podence maybe at 5.5 million. James Rodriguez, Greenwood and Foden, you would say are all around the same price point as Adama. And from what I can tell, they're much, much better options. So it's a pretty simple let's move as far as I'm concerned. So 19.2% of players currently have Traore in their team. So what I'm saying is, if you're one of them and you have 0 other problems in your team that you want to address, Adama Traore could be a good player to sacrifice in your fantasy team to make some progressive and positive moves. So let's move on to the keeps. I guess for the keeps, it's players that I think a lot of people are thinking about or currently moving on and removing from their fantasy teams. That I really want to let you know, guys, that this is not the time to remove them from your team. So my first is Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's the 3rd most transferred player out, which is a little bit worrying to me. People must have really short memories, because just a week ago we were all saying what great value he is at, like 210 points last season for a 7.5 million defender. What a steal, we were all saying. What a bargain. But now apparently he's not good enough just after one bad game. I don't think that overrides an entire season of class. Now, Liverpool may have been given a real shock in the Leeds game, and they might begin to tighten up their defence over the next few games and start getting plenty of clean sheets again. And don't forget, Alexander-Arnold, his main draw, I guess, is his fantastic attacking threat, which hasn't disappeared overnight. That's not going to go overnight. And if you're selling Alexander-Arnold now, you might really regret that in a couple of weeks. So if you're going for a Robertson or a Digne or a Van Dijk, these all really seem like really sideways moves that, I don't think that's a good use of a transfer. So I really would recommend that you keep Trent Alexander-Arnold in your team and don't give up on him just yet. My other keep is Pierre, Emerick and Aubameyang, and I know not everyone is transferring out Aubameyang, but a lot of people are, and I do understand the desire to swap out Aubameyang for like a Bruno or a KDB. Obviously, they didn't play Game Week 1, and a lot of people want to find a way of getting Bruno or KDB in their team, so they're sacrificing Aubameyang. Maybe some people are getting in Salah because Salah got 20 points last week, and there are a lot of other great midfield options, but I just don't think now is the time to sell a Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I know after his Game Week 2 fixtures are... His Game Week 3 fixtures onwards are pretty bad, to be honest. But it's just not the time right now. So he looked really good against Fulham, and he could have easily scored and assisted more. West Ham do have some problems at the moment, and Arsenal should beat them by a few goals at home. Aubameyang will be the main source of goals as well, and I do think, if I had to predict, I would say that Aubameyang outscores Bruno this game week, he outscores KDB this game week, and he probably outscores Salah this game week as well. I think he'll outscore all of the guys who a lot of people are moving in for Aubameyang. So if that is the case, just wait one more week and then bring in your preferred player when sort of Aubameyang's fixtures really do look rubbish. They're playing Liverpool in Game Week 3, so you can sort of bring in a Bruno or a KDB or a Sterling or a Salah or whoever you want to bring in, but just wait one more week before you make that move. Because it's just not worth it just quite yet. I know you're keen to get Manchester United and City players in, but just don't make Aubameyang the sacrifice this game week. So let's move on to the avoids, and I guess these are the players who are there. Sort of hype trains, bandwagons that I'm not so keen on, that I don't think are good ideas, and you're probably not going to like what I'm about to say because it seems counterintuitive, but this is how we get ahead of FPL a little bit by looking a little bit deeper into things rather than just who scored the most points last game week. That you can't win FPL by just looking at who scored the most points last game week. So my first avoid is Willian, the third most transfer in player after Bruno and KDB, which is just insane. And obviously Willian is the first price rise of the year. He's now at 8.1 million. That's pretty expensive. But he looked great in Game Week 1 with 3 assists. But the problem is he's a huge rotation risk with Pepe and Saka. They're definitely going to get minutes, and they're not going to replace Aubameyang on the left wing. So Willian is going to be sacrificed. And for 8.1 million, you can't really afford to spend all that money to have a player who could only end up playing like 50% of matches or potentially even less. Plus, after the West Ham game in Game Week 2, William's fixtures really do take a downward turn for the worse, like I was saying with Aubameyang just now. So, yeah, I understand the desire to put Willian in. Yes, he scored a really high amount of points, but he is such a rotation risk that I think you can use your transfer in a much more effective way in another area of your team. So, for example, James Rodriguez, around the same price as Willian, a little bit cheaper, and I think that provides a lot more value. So go for that is what I would probably suggest. And my other one, again, I'm talking about Arsenal players, again, the third player in a row, but I've got Gabriel down here, so fourth most transferred in player and the most transferred in defender. Perhaps a lot of people are going from Trent Alexander-Arnold to Gabriel, perhaps. Yes, he had a fantastic debut, a really fantastic debut, and as an Arsenal fan, I was really pleased to see Gabriel. But and he got of course his set piece goal as well. But the problem is with actual centre backs, you can't depend on goals and assists in the same way as you can with fullbacks. So fullbacks, you can sort of predict where they might get assists and potentially goals, depending if they take set pieces, for example. But with fullbacks, you can't really predict when they're going to score a corner header. They seem to go in sort of random games, don't they? So you have to rely on clean sheets when we're looking at centre backs. And Gabriel, a centre back, look at his fixtures after Game Week 2. And yeah, okay, right. So after Game Week 2, from Game Week 3, he plays Liverpool, Sheffield United, Manchester City, Leicester, and Manchester United all in a row. Now, you have to ask yourself, how many clean sheets do you honestly think Gabriel will get during that run-in of 5 games? Maybe one against Sheffield United, you might say, but potentially not even any. Liverpool are going to score goals, City will score goals, Manchester United will score goals, Leicester could very easily score goals, and Sheffield United is really the only fixture in there where you might think that they get Arsenal get a clean sheet. So I would not be banking on another corner header goal, not just yet anyway. And I just don't think it's a good transfer at all. Like, at least with Willian, you can still do really well in attack, but Gabriel, because we are relying on the clean sheets, it's not looking good, I'm afraid. So I cannot recommend Gabriel as a transfer in at all, and I won't be touching that bandwagon. So yeah, if you want to go for another defender, why not join me on the Reece James train, perhaps? But yeah, he's not going in my team this week anyway, I don't think. But yes, there you go. Those are all of my buys, my sells, my keeps and avoids. Like I said, if you did enjoy this video and you want to hear me do a similar video every single game week, give it a big like, give it a big thumbs up. Let me know what you think in the comments. And yeah, if you're happy with this video, then I'll make one every week, basically. So yeah, yeah, please do consider subscribing if you haven't done already. That's really appreciated. I'm closing in on 30,000 subscribers now, so it'd be really awesome if we can push towards that over the weekend or something like that. So please do that. In the description, you can follow me on Twitter, you can follow me on Instagram, you can join my mini league, you can support me on Patreon. So yeah, go check out the description for all of those links. And other than that, I suppose, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a video or a stream, but I'll let you guys know on Twitter, I guess. But yes, until the next time, I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.